Now, the problem is he didn't ever, I don't know if, again, this interview is from, I believe, around 2010. I don't know if he came around before he died, but he never even put together the 9/11 stuff. He viewed it the same way that a lot of lefties did, really, where, you know, a lot of these you know, all the pushback on Zionism really in over the last, well, since the creation of Israel, really, in American politics, the majority of it's come from the left, and usually from people like this guy, and they all frame it the same way. The 9/11 stuff, they say, well, yeah, they hate, the Arabs did it because they hate us, but they don't hate us for our freedoms. They hate us because we support Israel. And that was kind of the accepted talking point. That's kind of what he says in this interview. He does, however, later in life, mention the USS Liberty, so maybe he came around. But this was, at least as of this interview here, this was his view of 9/11.
We deplore, as we should, the 9/11 assault that killed about 3,000 Americans, innocent people. But maybe it was a terrible form of payback by Arabs who remembered even just one episode around Beirut in 1982, when I was in the last months of my service in Congress. Israeli fighter planes and artillery massacred over 18,000 people in Beirut and neighborhood because the Palestinians were very numerous in that area. Over 18,000 were killed by bombs and artillery fire that we had condoned and furnished to the Israelis for whatever purpose they wanted to make. We are reviled so widely today when, in the wake of World War II, the whole world revered America. We've lost so much because of this very deep-seated bias and the influence over our society by the lobby for the State of Israel.
And again, he doesn't seem to put together that, oh, you know, actually, it's actually even worse than that. But like I said, again, maybe before he died, he figured it out, because here's him talking about the USS Liberty later on. This is, I don't know the exact year, but I think this is after that interview at a dinner.
That's not the rest of the story. Lyndon Johnson ordered a cover-up of what happened. It was bad enough that he ordered the the fighters, aircraft to come back, but he ordered a cover-up, and Admiral Kidd was sent immediately to Malta, where some of the sailors, survivors, were being cared for, and he notified every one of them that they would face a court-martial if they said anything about what actually happened during the assault on the Liberty. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the commander-in-chief doing anything like that? But he did. He accepted the false story that Israel came up with, that it was a case of mistaken identity. That was a lie, and when Johnson issued the order of the cover-up, he knew that it was a lie. And that's when the big change began in our relationship with Israel. As I interpreted this experience that the State of Israel had with the Liberty ship and with President Johnson, convinced the officials of Israel that they could get by with anything, even the murder of U.S. sailors, and there'd be no rebuke, no confrontation.
Yeah, so why wouldn't they want to get away with 9/11? They already learned their lesson. In fact, he echoed almost word for word I believe it was the Secretary of State, former Secretary of State, who said the same thing, that that was the moment that the Israelis realized that they could literally get away with anything. If they could get away with attacking a U.S. vessel and killing U.S. Navy personnel, and then trying to cover it up, and have the U.S. President, Johnson, ultra-Zionist. Some people say he has actions. It really doesn't matter. He was an ultra-Zionist one way or the other. They could get away with anything. Like 9/11. Now, here is a speech he gave towards the end of his life. So you'll have to forgive the slowness of his speech, because he's not exactly a fast talker ever. But this is I think he's in his 90s when he does this. I think this is 2015, and I think he was 98 when he died. I think he's like 90 something when he's doing this. So, forgive him for being a little slow. In fact, I thought about speeding the footage up, but I thought it might seem a little hokey. It's not that. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's a little slow. But this is one of the last public appearances he made, where he's talking to the National Press Club, talking about the Israel lobby.
Of recent months, the U.S. government has displayed on enormous international television for all to see the shameful subservience to Israel and its lobby. That's what brings me here tonight. Turn your thoughts back to last October. The thundering assault on Gaza, that tiny open-air prison where people have to struggle just to live from one day to the other. The toll of death, 2,200. The toll of injured, 11,000 more. Shattered schools, hospitals, almost everything that made up the struggling economy of Gaza was shattered in just a few hours. World leaders thundered their opposition, all except one leader, and that was Mr. Obama. A reporter finally accosted him and said, "What do you say about the Gaza war?" I was watching television that night, and I was struck by the grim countenance of President Obama. All he said was, the Israelis have the right of self-defense, period, nothing else. It seemed to me that that was all he was permitted to say by higher authority. And no reporter pressed him for elaboration. To me, that's said that the reporters of the major media in this country are just as overwhelmed and paralyzed by the Israel lobby as our government seems to be most of the time.
Or it's because they run the media. So even President Obama was at the mercy of Israel just as much as Trump is today, just as much as Bush was before him. The Israelis have run our government for several decades, really almost since the founding of Israel. And then he brings out, look, if you want a good visual demonstration of how much our government is owned by Israel and was back in 2015, he then brings up something that happened in 2015. It happened again recently, or more recently, but he brings up the time it happened in 2015.
An amazing event took place on Capitol Hill. And I know that Nick Rahal feels, as I do, and Jim Moran feels the same way, that there is something sacred in the House of Representatives chamber. It's one of the cherished heirlooms of our republic. The symbol, if there is one single outstanding preeminent symbol of liberty and free speech, it's the House chamber. And it was a sad moment for me when I realized that the lobby for Israel has sufficient power to gain control of the House chamber and to put on what is nothing more than a campaign speech for the benefit of Netanyahu 10 days before his bid for a fourth term. Our government cooperated in that desecration of that heirloom of our great republic, the House chamber.
Now, what he's talking about is Netanyahu spoke to the House in 2015. I believe he did again during Trump's first term. I'll have to look that up while this is playing. But I want you to look at. You guys have seen the State of the Union, right? When the president is speaking, does he get both sides of the aisle to give him a standing ovation at any point? Even when he's just saying, go America? And I don't just mean because, Trump is unpopular or whatever. I mean, do you ever see both sides of the chamber, everyone in the room, almost like they are at Kim Jong-un's birthday party, and they're worried about being being noticed as the first person to stop clapping? These are the people that you are told run your government, clapping for a foreign leader.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you the Prime Minister of Israel, His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu.
Who else gets a response like that? No presidents get responses like that. And it was an hour long. It could have been 10 minutes long. Most of it's clapping. It's an hour long, and the entire hour is literally this over and over and over again.
I want to thank you all for being here today. I know that my speech has been the subject of much controversy. I deeply regret that some perceive my being here as political. That was never my intention. I want to thank you, Democrats and Republicans, for your common support for Israel, year after year, decade after decade.
Every single one of them. Standing ovation after standing ovation. When all he's saying is, thanks for all of you supporting Israel.
No matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel.
They're even screaming and shouting like they're at a fucking football game. It's an hour of it. You can watch. Look, if you don't believe me, it's on YouTube. You can find it. 2015, Netanyahu speaks to the House.
I know that America stands with Israel. I know that you stand with Israel.
It's a full fucking hour of this fucking shit.
Facing me, right up there in the gallery, overlooking all of us in this august chamber, is the image of Moses. Moses led our people from slavery to the gates of the Promised Land. And before the people of Israel entered the land of Israel, Moses gave us a message that has steeled our resolve for thousands of years. I leave you with his message today. Chizku v'imtzu, al tiru ve'al ta'artzu mipnehem. Be strong and resolute, neither fear nor dread them. My friends, may Israel and America always stand together, strong and resolute. May we neither fear nor dread the challenges ahead. May we face the future with confidence, strength, and hope. May God bless the state of Israel, and may God bless the United States of America.
This is the never-ending standing O right here. I didn't edit this for it to be longer. This is really how long it is.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all. You're wonderful. Thank you, America. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Everyone's afraid to stop clapping. They're still. I didn't edit this. This is really how long they clap. And it actually went on longer than that. It's just that's where the video clip ended on YouTube. That's what you're dealing with. Most people don't know. That's what you're fucking dealing with. This is Zionist occupied territory. So that's what he was referring to when he was like, I couldn't believe what I fucking saw. That's what he was talking about.
The tips of the iceberg give no hint of the suffocating influence of the lobby for Israel across America. It's as if a suffocating blanket, had been spread across the entire nation. It's not just what happens in Washington, what happens on Capitol Hill, what happens in other places. I doubt if many people realize the extent of the paralyzing influence that reaches across the nation, not just in big cities, but in small towns and hamlets. There are people that are willing to spend time to guard the gates, so to speak, for Israel every day. They're on the alert for anyone who might say something or do something that would show disapproval of Israel. These agents exist by the hundreds and hundreds throughout the country.
So he's telling you, like, this isn't just at the national level. These people are in local elections. These people are in just regular positions of power in companies. These people are in academia. And look, these people are obviously in the White House now. These people are everywhere. But they're not just at the White House. They're at the White House, they're at your local sheriff's office. Speaking of sheriffs, I can't tell you why I know this. But I am just going to, I shouldn't even say this, but I am just going to say it. I have it on good authority that Sheriff Joe Arpaio is a lot more based than you think. But anyway, that's all I'm going to say. But yeah, for the most part, though, these Zionists, or many of which were, but not all of them are, they have little spies everywhere.
And of course, they are concentrated heavily as well in Washington. I'll give you just one example. Harold Saunders, a great diplomat that I worked with quite closely over the years, told me that if he wanted to get a letter to the Secretary of State, his boss, that dealt with misbehavior by Israel, he said, I have to sit down, type the letter myself, go to the Secretary's office and hand it to him personally. If I would put the letter in the usual desk-to-desk transition up to the top of the State Department building, it would emerge emasculated so thoroughly that the intention would never appear. Imagine that. Couldn't depend on a letter arriving as intended to the Secretary of State.
And that's how thoroughly all that the government's infiltrated. Even if you're a diplomat and you're just trying to write a letter to your boss, the Secretary of State, and in this case right now, Marco Rubio would probably just throw it in the trash because he's about as Zionist as they come. But if you wanted to write something that, in fact, then he would fire you after that. But if you had a Secretary of State that wasn't Marco Rubio, the guy that Trump picked, because he's also an ultra-Zionist, then you couldn't even write a report that was just factually, made Israel look bad a little bit, and expect it to get to the Secretary of State, because it would go through the chain, and there's enough already at the State Department. Trust me, believe me, I've been to the State Department. It's about the part of government, and that's saying something, that there is. And especially if you get to anything that handles anything Middle East related, it's packed full of especially under Republican administrations. And so if you write a letter to the Secretary of State, by the time it changes, it gets read by the people, the chain of command. By the time it gets to the Secretary of State, they've removed all the bad stuff about Israel. That's treason. This is why Jews can't be Americans. Jews can't be Americans. It's like I said. This would apply. This goes across the board. I said something on Twitter a couple years ago. I said, a Jew in your movement will never be a Jew in your movement, but you will be the goy in his. So anytime people getting excited about, like Stephen Miller as an example, it applies to those people too. At the end of the day, that base that you think is a movement, 99 times out of 100, when the rubber meets the road, you're the goy in his movement. Your objectives just happen to overlap enough to where he plays nice some of the time. But at the end of the day, you're the goy in his movement.
There are hundreds of people in our government who feel that they have a duty to guard Israel against any mischief or any harm. They aren't paid. They aren't paid by the AIPAC, they're paid by the taxpayers, but they feel this total obligation to defend Israel. And I, in a sense, admire people like that, but it has resulted in the destruction of free speech about Israel and the U.S. throughout the nation. This is a rare occasion here tonight. People openly discussing the misbehavior of the State of Israel, criticizing the lobby for the State of Israel. It's a remarkable occasion because you would search the city over and you won't find another like this. And it's great credit to the leadership of the Washington Report on Middle East Affairs that this meeting is being held. Now, they act out of fear. They fear that Israel will be hurt. Others act out of fear for a different reason. They fear that they might be accused, even by indirection, of being anti-Semitic. The charge of anti-Semitism is still the most powerful instrument of intimidation that Israel's lobby has. And it exists among these